Jason stumbled out of the school hallway, clutching his nose, his chest heaving as he prepared for what was coming. "Not now, not here," he muttered, panic setting in. But it was too late. He sneezed, a loud, uncontrollable explosion. And then, in a blink, he was gone. When Jason opened his eyes, he was standing in the middle of a battlefield, swords clashing around him, the air thick with smoke. His sneakers squelched in the mud as a knight on horseback thundered past, screaming something in a language he couldn't understand. Jason's heart raced. Where am I now? Jason Riker had always thought his sneezes were unusually powerful. Allergies, they said. Dust, pollen, or pet dander. But Jason knew there was more to it, something unexplainable. Ever since his 13th birthday, every sneeze had become a portal to chaos. Each one hurled him into a different time and place, and there was no way to control it. The first time it happened, he sneezed in math class and found himself on the deck of a pirate ship in the 17th century. Hey! After dodging cannon fire and barely avoiding a plank walk, he sneezed again and returned to his bewildered classmates. He tried to dismiss it as a daydream, but the smell of gunpowder and the splash of seawater on his sneakers told a different story. Jason's life was now a series of random timelines, prehistoric jungles, roaring 1920s jazz clubs, and dystopian futures. Each sneeze was a gamble, and he had no idea when he'd find himself back home. One day, after yet another chaotic sneeze landed him in ancient Rome during a gladiator match, Jason decided he needed answers. Why was this happening to him, and how could he stop it? His quest for understanding led him to Dr. Eleanor Crane, a reclusive physicist who had once published papers on temporal anomalies. He found her in a cluttered lab on the outskirts of town, her wild gray hair as chaotic as her theories. Time displacement triggered by biological reflexes. Fascinating, she muttered, examining Jason as if he were a rare specimen. She ran tests, scanned his brain, and even recorded one of his sneezes. The results were astonishing. Your sneezes create micro-tears in the fabric of time, she explained. Each tear acts as a wormhole, pulling you into a random moment in history or the future. But there's a catch. Jason gulped. What catch? The more you sneeze, the weaker the barriers of time become. If this continues unchecked, you could unravel the timeline entirely. Determined to find a solution, Jason and Dr. Crane worked together. She developed a prototype device, a wristband she called the Chrono Stabilizer. This should anchor you to your home timeline, she said. But there was a problem. The device needed a rare element, tempusium, which didn't exist in their timeline. The only way to get it was to travel to a future where it had been discovered. Jason's next sneeze was deliberate. He triggered it with a handful of pepper and braced himself. When the blinding light faded, he found himself in a gleaming city of glass towers and floating vehicles. A robotic voice greeted him. Welcome to Neo Terra, year 3054. Navigating the futuristic world was no small feat. Jason dodged drone enforcers, deciphered advanced technology, and eventually located a lab where tempusium was synthesized. But stealing it wasn't easy. Alarms blared as he sprinted out of the facility, clutching a small vial of the glowing substance. Just as a swarm of robotic guards closed in, Jason felt the familiar tickle in his nose. He sneezed, clutching the vial tightly, and landed in Dr. Crane's lab. She wasted no time incorporating the tempusium into the Chrono Stabilizer. This should stop the random jumps, she said, strapping the device onto Jason's wrist. But there's one thing you need to know. It'll only work if you truly want to stay in your home timeline. If there's any doubt in your heart, the device might fail. Jason hesitated, Despite the chaos, he'd seen incredible things. Dinosaurs roaring in prehistoric jungles, inventors sparking revolutions, and distant futures that filled him with both awe and dread. Part of him didn't want to give it up. But then he thought of his family, his friends, and the life he'd left behind. He wanted to go home. With a deep breath, Jason activated the device. The room shimmered around him, and for the first time in months, he felt grounded. No sneezes, no jumps, just the comforting stillness of the present. Dr. Crane smiled. "Looks like it worked." Jason nodded, relief washing over him. But as he walked out of the lab, he couldn't shake the feeling that his journey wasn't over. And when he felt a faint tickle in his nose, he froze. Not again. Life, Jason realized, was a lot like time travel, full of unexpected twists, leaps into the unknown, and the constant struggle to find your place. Whether anchored in one timeline or scattered across many, the key was to cherish the moments that mattered and never stop seeking the answers to life's mysteries.